I now call Judith Cochrane.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the opportunity to speak on this group of amendments to the bill. Special advisers are important appointments and are also sensitive appointments. As such, while we respect that the nature of the positions requires that ministers be given a level of discretion regarding appointments, there are nevertheless aspects that are matters of public interest. Special advisers are in practice senior civil servants, but without the requirement to act at all times in a politically impartial manner. They are also different from other civil servants in terms of the nature of their appointment and in that their tenure in office is tied to that of their minister. However, given the influential nature of the role, there are critical issues in ensuring that those appointed are sufficiently qualified for the post and competent to execute the duties, and that, especially when in sensitive positions, there is no risk. We therefore welcome the steps that have been taken over a number of years to bring a greater degree of formality and structure to the process for appointing special advisers. Initially, guidance was introduced to improve the process by which ministers identify and consider potential applicants. More recently, a process has been introduced whereby potential appointees are subjected to similar vetting processes as are used by the civil service in respect of any other civil servant. And Alliance ministers have already accepted and implemented these improved guidelines and processes. There does, however, continue to be a lack of public confidence in the current system and a perception that processes for appointing special advisers are exempt from controls and accountability. We accept that there is merit in seeking to address that lack of public confidence, and our view is that the best way to do so would be by placing the existing guidelines and processes onto a statutory footing, essentially making what are guidelines and protocols into legally binding requirements. And that's the basis upon which we have tabled amendments to the bill. We're also opposing clauses 2 and 3 of the bill. These clauses substantially change the current practice, and it is here that we have to ask the broader question of whether the proposed legislation is appropriate and consider the advice that was given to the committee by a broad range of individuals. Taking that advice into account, our principal concerns relate to the blanket nature of the exclusion from appointment and the retrospective effect of Clause 2. We do, of course, already have legislation in other spheres that specifies certain areas of employment from which people should be barred, but these are either based on concerns about public safety, for example protection of children and vulnerable adults, or on direct relevance of crimes committed to the job in question. Clause 2 provides a blanket exclusion based on a view that anyone convicted of any crime for which they have received a sentence of 5 years or more should be deemed unsuitable for the job of special adviser. This takes us significantly beyond exclusions that apply for other civil servants. This and the retrospective nature of the proposal, which we have been advised would only be warranted in pursuit of public safety, were highlighted as problematic by the Human Rights Commission, the Equality Commission and the Attorney-General. Yes? Oh.
I'm at a bit of a loss to understand or to follow the logic of the member's point. First of all, she agrees that some vetting is essential. Now, if there is the vetting, you vet out certain people. And what I understand that Clause 2 and 3 does is indicate the people who would be subject to vetting and vetting out. But it's not a blanket exclusion. As the proposer has been at pains to point out during his speech, he has now included an appeal mechanism which enables those who have been initially vetted out to argue their case so that they can be appointed. So it's either the member thinks vetting is a good idea or it's not. And secondly, either the member accepts that there is now a mechanism being proposed by the proposer whereby those who may initially have been excluded or can be included. If that's the case, it's not blanket.
I thank the member for his intervention, and we do agree that vetting should be in place, and that's essentially what our amendment seeks to do. It seeks to put your own guidelines into statute and therefore be carried through for them all. As I've said, our amendments seek to place existing DFP guidance and processes for appointments and vetting onto a statutory footing, and to make it legally impossible for any minister to get around the processes that would fall under Clause 6. Our Amendment 35 seeks to close the current loophole, and I've spoken to the proposer of the bill about this, and perhaps this will need to be looked at under further consideration, as Part 2 of our amendment refers to an appeal mechanism, and I take the point that's already been made by others about a potential better make-up of that panel. The review undertaken at the instruction of the Minister for Finance and Personnel and the outcome that was accepted by him in 2011 has strengthened the vetting procedure and moved it in line with the procedure applied for other civil service appointments. And this is the essence of what the Alliance amendments seek to achieve. It would provide for vetting that is on par with other civil servants, but also provide some scope for discretion. For example, for conventional civil servants, unspent convictions, which are any convictions that result in a custodial sentence of 2.5 years, so it's actually less than what's proposed in the bill of 5 years, are considered against a risk assessment matrix. Proposed appointees are then invited to provide comments to DFP on the decisions about those convictions, and DFP officials then go through a process of weighing up all of the relevant issues before deciding whether the offences should preclude a candidate from appointment. Decisions in relation to convictions and suitability for appointment are therefore based on relevance, and there is no blanket ban. And this revised code of appointments has been accepted by both Alliance ministers, and indeed my colleague, the Minister for Employment and Learning, was the first to deploy it with the appointment of a temporary special advisor. We believe that we should take that rigorous system, which does not carry the risk of challenge that appears to come with the proposed clauses 2 and 3, and make it law. Strong, safe and practicable law. Alliance has a specific difficulty, though, with both the SDLP and Sinn Féin amendments, in that they draw a distinction between conflict-related convictions and other convictions. We are supporters of the Good Friday Agreement and accepted the logic in relation to the early release on licence of prisoners convicted of paramilitary offences before 1998, and that those convicted after 1998 for such pre-1998 offences would serve 2 years. This was a recognition of the much reduced risk of reoffending within a political context. However, it did not mean that we would excuse what they had done, and therefore when it comes to the rehabilitation and reintegration of prisoners into society, we should treat them all equally, irrespective of whether it's conflict-related or another distinction. The St Andrews Agreement also committed the two governments to working with business, trade unions and ex-prisoners groups to produce guidance for employers, which will reduce barriers to employment and enhance reintegration of former prisoners. The Minister for Employment and Learning is working to give former prisoners the employability skills to re-engage with the world of work. And the Alliance Justice Minister has made a strong case that effective policies around rehabilitation and reintegration are in the interests of society as a whole, as the risk of reoffending is reduced and consequently community safety is increased. And it's for these reasons, therefore, Mr Deputy Speaker, that we will be opposing Clause 2 and 3, and I would ask others to support my amendments to Clause 6. Thank you.